Welcome to the Colorful Clipboard, where we discuss the building blocks of making dough in childcare. I'm Kate.
And I'm Carrie.
Welcome back to Colorful Clipboard, and we are so excited to talk to you today about being dramatic.
I have a lot of experience with this, having been, a theater person, since I was 15? So is that what we're talking about?
No.
What?
I'm sorry. I started laughing at myself because I was trying to be dramatic, and then I don't know. That's not me. So today, as we talk about dramatic, we're going to be talking about dramatic play and kind of what that means, how to make that a key component within your program. And again, kind of sticking with what's happening currently in our society. I also want to kind of make sure that we talk about some of that diversity, equity, and inclusion opportunities within our dramatic play. So for those who may not know or have maybe a small dramatic play section in their room, give us a little introduction, Carrie, maybe even what people should have as the basics.
Well, so the traditional is to have a play kitchen, right? You have a table, you have something that functions as a countertop or a stove or a sink. Some programs have all three. They may also have a refrigerator. The table, of course, has chairs. There's probably a baby doll involved, and there might be dress-up clothes. So that's what most people have in their head about what should be in dramatic play, which drives me a little crazy because it's so close-ended. It should be much more open-ended than that, in my opinion, because the point
so what are some easy ways to make it open-ended, or for maybe those of us who are, kind of, I don't want to say controlling, but we like to have open-ended is something we struggle with. So one of the things I know I've seen are even notebooks with pictures of different careers or different careers around different holidays or different times of the year to encourage a theme within the dramatic play. Does that make sense? Am I saying that right?
So the easiest thing to do is to just change out the props that you have in that space and maybe move the furniture a little bit. It doesn't take a whole lot of work to make a kitchen into an ice cream parlor.
Oh, I love that idea. Or tea parties.
Right? Or even a coffee shop, right? It doesn't take a whole lot to add to that. You just need a couple of aprons for the person who's going to be behind the counter, maybe some hats for the ice cream. A lot of ice cream places have some sort of hat. And then you might, if you're doing a coffee shop, you might, ask the local coffee shop, can we have 4 of your disposable cups, and then you hot glue it together, and that plastic cup lid can be disinfected. The paper part can't be it can be. You have to spray it with rubbing alcohol instead of spraying it with bleach, because if you spray it with bleach, you can do that twice. So you just have to use a different sanitizer.
What's also really nice, though, is, probably every parent in the world has a few branded coffee mugs that are plastic. I probably got 6 right now in my cupboard. Yeah. So, another great way to include your parents into the development. Right. But if we're going to be talking about any of these, what would be some things? Oh, excuse me. If you're wanting to demonstrate that you as a program, as a director, even teachers, truly understand how to make this dramatic play inclusive and equitable, what might be some things that you could do in any one of the examples you just used related to the kitchen to make sure that all of the kids in your classroom know that it's designed for all of the kids in the classroom?
Well, you should have both girl baby dolls and boy baby dolls, and you should have them in different colors. Now, you don't have to have 27 baby dolls out at a time. You can rotate through and have 2 in at a time. One boy, one girl. One is Anglo, the other is has Hispanic or Native American skin color. And then the next time you swap it out, maybe there's an African American baby and an Asian baby. you're just showing some diversity that way. And if you're using it just as a kitchen, ask the parents what foods they keep in their cupboard and refrigerator, and then ask them to bring you the empty containers. So if 4 families are like, we're all about mac and cheese, be like, cool, please bring me an empty mac and cheese container. The box, if they're making box mac and cheese, or those tubs, if they're using Easy Mac, then you bring it in and you prep it and make it ready to be used in the classroom. So that typically, if it's a paper box, you stuff it with something and then you wrap it in clear contact paper, again, so it can be disinfected and will last longer than a day. So I think those are 2 elements. Were there other things that you were thinking about there?
Well, I'm specifically thinking, and again, not every kid gravitates this way, and not every kid sees this. And a lot of times, if the kids only see one gender in the kitchen, especially if it's a kitchen or even if it's a restaurant, how do we help both the young boys and the young girls in the classroom see that everybody should be in the kitchen and that everybody has
I think
that?
part of that is the story choices that you may have during circle time, but also having pictures up of famous chefs who are different colors, different genders, etc., when you're doing a restaurant version of your dramatic play.
So that is an awesome thing to bring up, and I'm glad that you did, because I think that in the programs I've visited, especially recently, the dramatic play area is often, I'm going to use the term naked, right? Like the walls don't get into the theme, and they definitely don't get into setting or giving examples.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
so
understand.
I love that. Or they do it, but they do it at the adult height. That's the one that always cracks me up. Are these awesome posters that I get to see perfectly as an adult? I'm like, so as a kid, I see maybe the shirt the person's wearing.
Yeah, I mean, and the whole point of dramatic play is for children to be able to try to figure out what is going on in the world. And so people start with a home center because most people have a home, but not every child has a home. Some children live in cars, and some children live in, communal housing for, families of, abuse survivors, or families who are moving from homelessness back into being housed. So we have this thought that we have to set it up as a home center because everyone has a home, but they don't. And so we're excluding kids just doing that. And we always talk about a house. Well, more people live in apartments than live in houses.
That is such a great point. We think about this concept that you're bringing up sometimes as teachers and directors, and other times we totally forget because we don't always really do the true inventory of the kids in our class. And so, when we were talking about even the color of the baby dolls, well, obviously look at the kids in your class and the parents.
But you're gonna see people who are different even if everybody in your center is a person who has their own single household and they're all the same color. It's still important for the children to work through what it means to play with a black baby or to play with a white baby. They need to interact with people of different skin colors, even if the only way they're doing it is through baby dolls. So it's not just...
and that comes back to the stories that you were talking about,
right,
too, and the diversities that we're reading, is every family the mom, dad, and 2 kids.
Right.
How many stories have you read that are single parents, have same-sex parents? Again, you've got to know your market and you've got to know your families.
Or grandparents raising grandchildren.
Grandparents, yep. Big families, little families, families on the road. Some by choice,
Right. And so I think, because you mentioned, taking into account what's happening in the world right now, and more families are experiencing homelessness than were a year ago. And so
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how you incorporate it, but if you're only ever doing a home center and it's always based on a freestanding house, then you are missing the boat for most humans. Most humans on the planet don't live in a freestanding house.
Right. So you gave the example of the kitchen being the primary one. And to me, one of the very first dramatic play centers, or what comes to my mind initially, which was really funny, are all the career dress up kind of things. And I realize that with COVID, things are probably a little different in most programs. So we're going to go outside of COVID.
Well, and I find it funny that it's a house, but yet people put out firefighter gear. Who wears firefighter gear in their kitchen? No one.
Well, what I'm saying is, yeah, I mean, so a lot of times, in my head, dramatic play is all about just that, more of the dress up and that kind of thing, and not necessarily the kitchen. But I do remember having kids one time play firefighter putting out somebody's kitchen fire.
Yeah, and I think there's ways to incorporate it. Again, I'm not suggesting that everybody has to throw away their Little Tykes kitchen set if that's what you have. I think what is more helpful long term is to actually have wooden furniture that can be multi-purpose. And if you don't have that, then I would start talking to your parents and find out who's a woodworker. And if you don't have any parents who are woodworker, then that's the next thing you look for in potential clients.
Well, you know what's so one of the things that I saw at a program that I thought was just great was using one of the short bookshelves.
Yep.
And they literally it looked like placemats that they had taped on, and the placemats, they were burners or they were different kinds of things. And so they just made a bookcase, the stovetop. Yep. And then another part of the bookcase, because of the way they had the food lined up, they made the refrigerator. And it was to me, it was a very easy center to manipulate what it was. It didn't have to be, this is the kitchen. And so it was real easy to flip out. When my kids were younger, we did tons and tons of children's museums.
Right.
And children's museums, because of the pure volume of people that come through those spaces, have lots of these different components. And so definitely where I saw some of the more easy transitionable types of spaces. But to me, it was also one of those that would be so easy to put into a childcare center. But in childcare centers, we have a tendency to get stuck with the stereotype of you need to have a kitchen.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm not saying throw it out. I'm saying have in your, maybe couple year vision, instead having the wooden ones where you can use, again, these, I keep trying to come up with what are the great uses for those circuit vinyl cutting things.
Oh, the crickets? The crickets? Like a cricket?
Yeah. And I think that a great one is if you've got those wooden shelves, and you can get one that's horizontal and then another one that's vertical. And yes, sometimes it's a refrigerator and stove and sink. And sometimes it's other things. And so you could have pieces of lightweight hardy board that you put the Cricut circles for, the red ones for when it's a stove top. And then when instead it's a kitchen counter. I mean, not a kitchen counter, an ice cream counter. You've got pictures of different, buckets of ice cream in there. Or, you don't have anything on the top and they have to go under and get it. Or there might be, a printout of the menu at the ice cream store that you've laminated and you've just kind of used packing tape to attach it to the top of the shelf. But you can use things that don't have anything to do with food.
I love where you're going. How often should people change out these centers? I mean, I don't know.
Okay, so what I asked my teachers to do, which does not mean I got 100% compliance by any means, but I asked them to change it every 2 weeks, which meant that they had to have 26 rotations in the year. But it could be, it's kitchen this week, it's a firehouse next week, it's a kitchen the third week, it's an ice cream parlor, the fourth week, then it's a farm the next week. So it can go back to a kitchen every other time. So you really only need 13 different ideas, and you don't even have to have that many. You could have half that and rotate it through it. But I think things like, if people have not had dramatic play set up as a doctor's office during the year of COVID, shame on them, because how are the kids going to work through how scary COVID is if they don't get to practice? If they don't get to practice being doctors and being patients. I had teachers who would have no problem doing a vet's office. But they had a much harder time. The teachers had a harder time doing, for some reason, the doctor's office. And I don't really understand why they had a harder time. But kids have to practice what they see around them. And yes, your animal might get hurt and you have to take them to a vet, or they might get sick and you have to take them to a vet. But so may your family members, or you yourself.
Yep. Yeah. I love all the examples that you're giving. I think that it would be great for those listeners who are listening to today's podcast to, send us your comments, send us your examples, maybe your favorite. Also, when we talk about dramatic play, some people also do the dress up, and maybe they're right next to each other, maybe they're coordinated. You might then pull it back into, I loved your story time examples. It's a way to bring a theme throughout your entire space.
Yeah, and it can go outside also. I never understood why people kept all their dress-up clothes inside. You have a 2-story structure. Why not have that be the firehouse? And then you get some of that.
I could see how, hard hats. Even if it's just hats.
Yeah.
Because, you can find plastic cowboy hats, and you can find, things that are plastic that could handle maybe some of the outside wear. Raincoats, you could be a fisherman, they may not, depending, especially if you're in Texas, you may have to get pictures of what an Alaskan, fisherman wears, but, big yellow coats. All of that could be so much fun.
And again, you're tying it into the curriculum. So, in the
outside,
spring,
you could have a circus.
In the spring, what are some topics that people might have? So you might be doing a unit on butterflies, right? Or insects in general. And so you can take outside the dramatic play stuff, or get some borrowed dramatic play stuff for a beekeeper's outfit and some butterfly nets, and talk about what does an entomologist do.
Well, and making wings and dressing up as a butterfly, or
and running around the playground as a butterfly. Don't have them run around the classroom as a butterfly. You'll never get them to stop.
No. Yeah,
personal experience there. They cannot wear the wings inside. The wings are for outside.
Yep, you could definitely do circuses. You can do birds. Making birds' nests outside are a lot of fun. Again, you can always, I always love the one, a program that I visited one time was always into cardboard. And so they always had these big signs that if you're getting a big appliance or whatever, they really pushed it in the spring and again around Christmas, to bring them your big boxes. Because they loved doing castles and those
rockets.
kinds of.
It's an excellent rocket.
And what's great about those great big boxes is they are much better done outside.
Yep. They also make pretty good caves. So if you were doing a fairy tale unit, a lot of fairy tales have a cave involved. Aladdin has a cave involved. There's several others that have caves involved. The bear unit also would need a cave, because you have to have a place for them to hibernate. So, we can do dramatic play in lots of different places, but we have to remember what its purpose is. And I'm going to get controversial here. Are you ready?
No.
Okay, but too bad. I don't care. I shouldn't have put it that way.
You asked. I just felt like I had to give you a controversial answer.
So, hero play, Or when, back in the 50s, it was called, Cops and Robbers, right? So whether they're playing like they're Ninja Turtles or they're Pokemon and trainers, or whether they're playing like they're police officers, or whether they're playing like they're in the army, or any of those kinds of hero play is dramatic play, and it is appropriate. I get so frustrated when people say, well, we have no gunplay here at the center. And I'm like, okay, I understand why you want to pretend that that doesn't exist, but it does, and the children are consuming media where it's happening, and they need to process that. And you go, oh, well, that doesn't affect my program. I'm not in one of those neighborhoods. Okay, did any of the kids at your center watch any of the Avengers movies? Because every Avengers movie, people are shooting guns.
So I have a question. I mean, so this sounds like this actually could be probably its whole episode. Should we? Do we need to do one that talks about literally everything from cops and robbers to superheroes to even cowboys and Indians, and maybe not only acknowledging that it exists, but perhaps how to do some diversity, equity, and inclusion in those specific, because again, the kids that my kids hung around with would never have thought to have a girl cowboy.
Yep.
The girls were always the captured Indian. And, yes, my kids are in their 20s, and so it bugged me even then. And so I would really be interested in getting some ideas and sharing them with our directors on how to, shall we say, get excited about including that part in their classroom.
I think so. And also talking about how to redirect the behavior into something that is actually helping the kids to process, because what typically happens right now is that people just shut it down, which means the kids are like, oh, being scared of this is not okay. We can't talk about how we're scared about this. And I don't think that's healthy. I really don't.
All right, so I just added it to our list.
Okay, so we'll
do one on heroes, cops, and cowboys.
Okay.
Except I spelled cowboys wrong.
So make sure that you're providing opportunities for dramatic play. Kids have to do it by acting it out. Adults can do it by watching movies and TV shows and things like that. I have watched more shows that have a very clear, this is a person with superior powers to me or superior resources to me, and they're going to make everything right over the past year than I have ever watched in the rest of my life, because I needed to know that there were people who have more knowledge, more skills, or more abilities than I do, and that they're going to make the world okay. So we do it. We just do it intellectually. The kids have to do it physically.
Thank you so much, Carrie, for bringing us through the drama of the day. And with that, hopefully you will tune into next week. And we are so glad that you listened to us at Colorful Clipboard. If you have any questions, ideas, or feedback, email us at hello@colorfulclipboard.com.
Thank you for listening to Colorful Clipboards. Connect with us on social media at Colorful Clipboard, or send us an email to hello@colorfulclipboards.
Send us your voicemail with your own questions and stories. If you want to keep learning with us, visit Texas Director, where we continue to have seminars, licensing, programs, and more.
This show has been made by me, Carrie Casey, and Kate Young, with assistance from Hallie Casey and Marie Young. If you learned something today, share the show.